Hello, my name is Sean Fleming, and today we're going to talk about leads and beginnings. I'm talking specifically about personal narratives and leads and beginnings for personal narratives, but these beginnings can work for any story. The big question is, how do you get your reader's attention? Let's look at some different ways that authors do that. We have taken a look at Owl Moon by Jane Yolen. It was late one winter night, long past my bedtime, when Pa and I went owling. There was no wind. The trees stood still as giant statues, and the moon was so bright the sky seemed to shine. Somewhere behind us a train whistle blew, long and low, like a sad, sad. We also took a look at Fireflies by Julie Brinklow. On a summer evening I looked up from dinner, through the open window to the backyard. It was growing dark. My treehouse was a black shape in the tree, and I wouldn't go up there now. But something flickered there. A moment. I looked, and it was gone. It flickered again over near the fence. Fireflies. We looked at Thunder Cake by Patricia Polacco. Grandma looked at the horizon, drew a deep breath, and said, "This is thunder cake baking weather, all right. Looks like a storm coming to me. Child, you come out from under that bed. It's only thunder you're hearing," my grandma said. We read Enemy Pie by Derek Munson. It should have been a perfect summer. My dad helped me build a treehouse in our backyard. My sister was at camp for 3 whole weeks, and I was on the best baseball team in town. It should have been a perfect summer, but it wasn't. It was all good until Jeremy Ross moved into the neighborhood, right next door to my best friend Stanley. I did not like Jeremy Ross. A Day's Work by Eve Bunting. Francisco stood in the parking lot with his grandfather and the other men. It was the first time he'd been there. A truck cruised along, slowed. The driver held up 3 fingers. "Bricklaying. I need 3 men," he called. 5 men jumped in the back. "Only 3, the driver said, and 2 had to get out. So after we read these stories, we can think about, how did the authors begin their stories? How did they lead us into them? Well, 2 of the authors did it with description. It was late one winter night, long past my bedtime, when Pa and I went owling. There was no wind. The trees stood still as giant statues, from owling. And from Fireflies, on a summer evening I looked up from dinner, through the open window to the backyard. It was growing dark. Both of these authors have decided to use description in order to start their stories. Another way you could start would be to use dialogue. Grandma looked at the horizon, drew a deep breath, and said, "This is thunder cake baking weather, all right. Looks like a storm coming to me. Child, you come out from under that bed. It's only thunder you're hearing," my grandma said. Now, don't be boring and start with something like there was a bat in our house last summer. Isn't dialogue better? Try, "Quick, hit the floor," my dad yelled. "Whatever you do, don't look up," my mother added as I dropped to the floor and slid myself under my bed. It was a terrifying night for my family when we discovered a bat. Or you could try some action, some movement. Francisco stood in the parking lot with his grandfather and the other men. It was the first time he'd been there. A truck cruised along, slowed. The driver held up 3 fingers. So it puts us in the middle of the parking lot and the action that's happening there. Again, don't be boring. Don't say I was excited for my birthday party when you could say, I threw on my favorite red dress and scrambled down the stairs as fast as I could. It was my 8th birthday, and I couldn't wait for the party to begin. You could start with a strong statement. It should have been a perfect summer. That's a pretty strong statement. And then he ends that paragraph with, but it wasn't. Now, of these 4 options, I'd like you to try 3. Take out your notebook, open it to the next available blank page, and write 3 of these: description, dialogue, action and movement, or a strong statement. Do that now. Write those things, and I want to show you what I did with my story. Now, if you're looking for other ways to start your story, Anne Whitford Paul wrote writing picture books and has many different ways, as do many other authors. She offers starting with the time, starting with mood or setting, perhaps starting with an opinion, a provocative statement, starting in the middle of the action, conflict, or starting with a scrapbook. Now, you remember my story about Lucifer and making lunch with Lucifer? Well, here are some ways I might start that. If I were to use description, I might say, "The November wind blew through the leafless trees as my cat Lucifer rubbed his orange back against the warm radiator. A cold morning meant hunger for Lucifer, and he needed to eat. He licked his whiskers and sniffed the air. Cheese." I could also start with some dialogue. "Get off the counter," I whispered, trying not to wake up my mom. "Meow." I could try some action, some movement. Lucifer brushed his whiskers against my legs and jumped onto the counter. He pushed against my left hand as I tried to slice the cheese. He mewed and pushed again, insistent he would not take no for an answer. I could also start with a strong statement. The year that my mom did not get up for breakfast, I fought the cat and won. So I'd like you to try 3 of these, or go ahead and try all 4. If you have a 5th way, try that 5th way. As you write more beginnings, they'll all be different, and you'll be able to decide which one you like best. Again, if you like these videos, give it a like on YouTube and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.